welcome everyone to the exciting panel session on super apps in Southeast Asia. Catherine, Vaishali, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
I want to start with you, Vaishali. You have been head of Southeast Asia for 3 years. Recently, I learned that you're getting promoted as the global head of technology, media, and telecommunications at BCG. So tell us a little bit about that. Congratulations.
Well, thank you for that. Well, I had thought I would be, in Southeast Asia for a longer period in this exciting region, but I guess the opportunity showed up. So what the role encompasses is, well, it covers the 3 industries, which I find very exciting given the amount of disruption and change happening, telecom, tech, and media. And then, of course, it involves orchestration of what I call the 3 things. Client development, meaning new products, new offerings. It's IP development, so, intellectual property. It's talent development. So, of course, it also means, unfortunately, a lot of travel. But the good news is I'll be based out of Singapore.
Excellent. We are happy to hear that.
Congratulations.
Excellent. So I want to start the session by asking a polling question. It's a basic question about food, everybody's favorite subject. How often do you use food delivery apps? Frequently, sometimes, rarely, never. So everybody take out your phone and let's see. Wow. Frequently. Wow, it's majority.
Wow.
So, Catherine, what do you think? Is that good news, or do you think there's a more market to capture?
This is amazing, yeah. What do I think about that? We are in GOJEK. One of the main pillar of the company is the food delivery. That's why I'm called a chief food officer. Not that I'm ordering food for everyone in the office. That's my formal job description. No, I'm kidding. But we basically in this part of the world, in Southeast Asia, how we see is food delivery become a new industry, so-called, when we first came in. In Indonesia, we started April 2015, so slightly over 4 years now. And this is what we are trying to do. At end of last year, we started expanding to the Vietnam, and this year, early this year, to Thailand as well, under name Get Food. So in that sense, because we truly believe that this is a big opportunity. We're only scratching the surface in terms of the penetration in this part of the world. So yeah, it's great to see like people in this room is a frequent user already.
Excellent. So you have been in charge of expanding the food business at GOJEK since last year, right?
Yep.
And can you bring us up to date on where things are and your plans going forward?
Sure. So as I mentioned, actually when GOJEK started, it started with 3 services.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that, actually.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Yeah, we have 21 now. It's a little bit a busy page. But then when we started in January 2015, short 4 years ago, it was a transport. It was a courier service, delivering document, packages, and stuff. And the last one is a open text. It's just like, it's a concierge service. You can ask the driver or the service partner to do whatever you want. And then 80% of that open text service are used for delivering food. Yeah. That's how GoFood was born, April, May 2015. And the other 22 services here is also our effort of being part of a daily use case of our customer. Things keep adding up for different services. But as I mentioned, the pillar is the food, the payment, the courier, and the transport, of course.
Just how important is food, though? Because it's widely known that food is a very, very important pillar, core business in the, super app strategy, along with ride-hailing and, payments.
Yes.
So is it going to be something that you can actually monetize?
A lot of people do not know, just because of our origin as a transport ride-hailing company, that today the transport portion of the GOJEK is already smaller than the food and the payment business. So people always think of us as first and foremost a transport, but actually it's no longer the case. This is simply because we see the evolution of this, for the lack of better word, the super app, because at the end of the day it's a daily use case of people. and the pendulum has swung.
Okay. So before you go into super app strategy, I want to come back to you, Vaishali. Maybe you can talk more broadly about what are the important trends and market opportunities you see in Southeast Asia.
So that's a very broad question, so I'll try and just maybe offer a few perspectives. One is, I think, Southeast Asia has always been quite a dynamic region, but I think we are at the tipping point right now of a few trends coming together, which is what makes it so attractive also in the digital space. One is what we call the middle and affluent class customers. These are customers, what I call, in every market that are able to have some affordable luxuries, can do a bit of discretionary spend, can have a bit of experiential spend as well. And that has really skyrocketed. Today, it's about 300 million consumers in ASEAN. It's going to go up to about 370 million over the next 4 or 5 years. The other trend is affluence. Again, we have quite a strong set of people coming into the affluent class. We're going to add another 70, 80 million. That's the top 10% of the population in any country over the next 10 years. And I think the other bit is just this whole mobile first and digitally engaged young population, actually. And if you look at any stats, I think Southeast Asia is, at least on global average, actually most countries surpass global average on whatever dimension you look. You look at internet penetration, you look at digital engagement, meaning how do you actually interact on digital before you buy something. This is just the internet stats that you see. Growth, as you can see, is extremely high. Similarly, as I said, digital engagement is at a record level. Smartphones and data affordability is also coming into play. It's on average, again, getting to pretty significant numbers. All of this, I think, makes it really, I would say not just now, but over the last 2-3 years and the next few, this is the window in Southeast Asia for digital, in my view. And the opportunities are everywhere. I don't want to single out one or the other.
Yep.
I mean, whether you say commerce, food, education, but the key is pick something that, is, in my mind, you're solving a real consumer problem. I think the speaker before us was talking about it. And second, something that has local advantage and local scale. Because we are not going to be able to compete with the global majors on global platforms. So those two caveats I would put. And in fact, any market you go to in Southeast Asia has enormous potential. So I would hardly be, it's hardly that you say you choose Indonesia versus Philippines versus something else, per se.
Excellent. So now we want to go a little deeper into super app. So what is a super app? It's, we are starting to talk about it in Southeast Asia, but it's really a common phenomenon in China. So, it's you download an app and then you get multiple services that are relevant to your daily lives. So, I think in Southeast Asia, I think there are a lot of challenges. As you know, it's not China. And a lot of, different cultures and, people, languages, and currencies and so forth. So I want to bring up the next polling question about super app, and it's about, will super app succeed in Southeast Asia? Will super app succeed in Southeast Asia? Yes, no, maybe? A lot of optimists.
Good to hear.
It's great. So we can bring up GOJEK slide again one more time. Clearly, GOJEK is a super app. It's got already 22 different services. So can you tell us about your strategy going forward, as you expand outside Indonesia?
So it's we call it, like I mentioned, right? When we started, to be very frank, it was an accidental super app. Because when we started, the 3 services is kinda the genesis of the super app for us. And then That's how, let's say, the GoFood added. Then after that, the GoBox, for example, is because people say, hey, I need a bigger one and when I need to move stuff. So things are adding quite organically, I must say. And then probably only the last 1 year, we realized, oh, there is this term called super app. So we've been doing it the last 4 years. So in that sense, is the genesis in GOJEK has always been how we, because it's transactional apps, right? That's how we address ourselves. We continue to think about what is that daily or like frequent use case that we can make like the customer become much more convenient whenever they go to our app. So how is it going forward, if that's your question? If you see the pace of us adding product year on year, of course the beginning is much faster compared to today. And then today with more and more data, we kind of have more richness to say, okay, this is the key things that people are looking after. We talked just now in the waiting room, we say, out of the 22, how many do you think most people are using? Just very interesting question, I totally agree. That's why if you see the GOJEK app today, if you have it, it's only 7 out of the 22 that you can pick and choose depending on your characteristic as a customer that you put there. For example, for me, because I'm food, I always have food. I go using GoCard to the office every day, and then the Go bills for me to pay my electricity bill. So, and it's going to be different from one person to the other. So in that sense, it's a little bit of a broad spectrum. But at the end of the day, we realize because there's different customer segmentation that we are trying to address.
Okay.
Of course, there are few the bigger pillar that I mentioned that most people are focusing on that. Yeah.
Vaishali, I want to ask you about the challenges. You know, I think it's easier to build a super app in a country that you're familiar with, but going outside is harder. And this is, as I said, it's many, many different countries. So what do you think, what's your take on this, and how should they approach as they execute?
So maybe we just dial back and maybe if I just provide a little bit of a perspective on super app as well. You know, in my mind, ride hailing, yes, linked to food delivery, you can utilize your drivers better. There's a natural synergy. You know, there's payment because there's friction. When you do food delivery, you need some payment mechanism. The driver ain't going to carry that kind of money. You know, and there's also, of course, transportation because people are doing so much P2P commerce. I mean, if you look at P2P commerce right now in our markets, it's skyrocketing and everybody talks about e-commerce, right? But all those in my mind are natural adjacencies, right? They're natural segments that you will go into. And I can see why, you know, that kind of super app with, or mini app with those adjacencies are successful. But I think that there are, in Southeast Asia, entrenched behaviors, meaning there are certain social apps that you're using that you're familiar with. There are certain other things that you're using for content that you're familiar with. And there are entrenched habits. And that did not exist in China when the super app ecosystem got built up, and which is a major difference. I do believe that there is something called what are you best at and what are you known for? Because, you know, people will not come to something which is subpar. They would go to what they think is best. Imagine the convenience now, right? Suppose you were reading a newspaper earlier and you wanted global news, you know, sports news, etc. You couldn't possibly buy all those newspapers. But now you can go to different sites, or even one site but different papers. The cost of access, the cost of transaction is much lower. Similarly, do you really need it all together, or what is the cost of access and transaction as you go through different apps? So I would offer that as a counter-argument to all the statistics we saw up front on the poll, which is, I see a future for mini apps, mini super apps. I think the jury is still out, in my view, on the super app.
We are still early days. There's a lot of business to capture.
Yeah.
So, Catherine, I wanted to ask you about GOJEK strategy. Acquisitions has been really important, you know, part of GOJEK scaling and expansion. Are you looking at any deals right now? Are we expecting new markets, you know, food entering new markets? Any exciting things happening on the horizon?
A lot of exciting things happening. But I think the way to answer that is this. In our DNA in GOJEK, we always believe that the market is so big, so huge. In certain industry compared to the other, it perfectly makes sense for us to speed up the growth by partnering with a market expert in a particular industry. As you have seen, like quite a number of the acquisition we had, for example, in the financial sector, right? Like the EDC company, this kind of payment and stuff. So we did that. But then for food specifically, I know you're asking me that previously. Food delivery business in this part of the world is quite nascent in that sense. So there is not that many like players that's already there that we can do that. And we believe that, again, right, like we mentioned, right? 3 years ago, food delivery was pretty much non-existent in Indonesia. We pretty much create that market as well. So in that sense, the potential of the inorganic growth is less compared to, for example, the financial industry.
You told me some interesting projects you have rolled out.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and how you're bringing small merchants to scale.
That is very interesting. So one thing in GOJEK, specifically GoFood, that we truly, truly believe is we are empowered and empowering small, medium businesses. So today in GOJEK, we have close to, has close to 400,000 merchants that is registered with us. This is combined Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. Of course, Indonesia currently is still the larger chunk of that. But what we realize is we're becoming the food delivery company that our main mission is empowering the small business to grow. So we continue to innovate. For example, the one that I shared with Yoolim earlier is this thing called GoFood Festival, right? It's a food court concept, basically because there's two things in Indonesia that we realize that's why we need this innovation. Number one, for a small mom and pop businesses, when we tell them, hey, you are doing well, let's say in the North Bangkok, but then a lot of your order come from the south part of the town, and then it's become longer for customer to wait for it because of delivery distance and all this kind of stuff. Why don't you open that? But then in Indonesia specifically, there is this one particular hurdle of small businesses to open business because they have to pay the rental 2-3 years in advance, which is pretty much is against the small businesses to grow. So what we do is we combined forces together. We work with a partner of the location. A location owner can be mall, can be a government location, can be all this kind of like office building. And then we created a food court all over Indonesia that help this small merchant to open their branches. So today we have like more than 1,000 small mom and pop business that has been enabled to open their second, third branches through this effort.
So this is online and offline?
Online and offline, that's right.
Okay, great. Vaishali, I want to ask you a very important question. A lot of companies here today, I think a lot of companies are now trying to find ways to transform their business, maybe traditional businesses, so that they don't get behind and get disrupted. Do you have any advice for them? Because you worked with so many clients over your career.
So I would say both aspects, actually. I firmly believe that, I don't even want to call this, but traditional corporates, if that's the word we're using here, I think they have so many unique, what I call unique assets or privileged assets, customer base, distribution, etc. If they can marry that with a startup mentality, the ways of working, culture, speed, etc., and customer centricity, together, I think it can be quite powerful to even create new businesses, actually, because you have the advantages that startups don't have. And so I actually even believe in new ventures. And in fact, BCG has an arm called Digital Ventures that does that for a living and has built about 100 of these ventures. We were part of the build of OVO. We were part of the build of Boost and so on with corporates in this part of the world and, of course, globally. So I would say first, there is a lot of promise and potential out there for you to build new ventures. Two, I think the need to transform and really be, fit for the digital world is also, I think, critical. But I think the one challenge I see is, and I'm sure some of you will say that, is that everyone's taken small steps, but you don't make a real change or a step change in small steps. You have to first think of what's your destination, and then really, yes, experiment as you go along that destination, but this whole fail fast doesn't mean that you don't have a destination. There is a destination you're getting to, and then you experiment and move at pace towards it, and not do it incrementally. That would be the one advice I give for the core business as well.
I would like to resonate on that. I think we just perfectly say it, right? That's what, as I mentioned, like we believe that for us to grow at the kind of pace that we want it to be, this kind of partnership, this kind of collaboration has become very, very important. For example, for this 400,000 merchant of ours, right? A lot of them, the previous speaker talking about the unbankable, they were previously couldn't have an access to this kind of like micro loan, right? Like working capital loan and all this kind of stuff. So what we do, we become that platform as well, for example. So a lot of banks, we don't want to become a bank, right? So there's a bank that basically doing the channeling the loan through them. But previously, this mom and pop restaurant, they don't even have a track record. It's not that they are not worthy to get loan, but there is no track record for the bank to collateralize against, right? So we are working there as providing them, hey, because now we have these apps to help the merchant as well to see their transaction history, then this previously couldn't get loaned, now they can. I think this is the kind of like collaboration, the kind of like working together, partnership that I think will become very powerful.
So you're actually seeing a network effect taking place within the GOJEK umbrella.
Yes.
That's fantastic. I think we're running out of time. Well, thank you so much for all these insights.
Thank you so much.
Vaishali.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us.